So I wanted to start. Let's take a step back and start with Silvergate because for the listeners that may be unaware of what had transpired, Silvergate was one of the primary banks that served the crypto industry. Came under a lot of pressure after the FTX collapsed. In fact, Dylan, I remember at Pacific Bitcoin in November, we were kind of talking about where this contagion might spread, and even back then, you were bringing up these banks, and we were looking at Silvergate, we were looking at Signature. And fast forward to today, and it turns out you were kind of spot on. So maybe we can start with you, and you can kind of recap what happened with Silvergate.
Yeah, totally. And like just to preface this for anyone that hasn't been following the whirlwind of the last 12, 18 hours, whatever it may be, or I guess the last 3 days. We had these banking failures over the weekend. There was talks of mass Armageddon and bank failures. The Fed and Treasury came out basically right at 6 p.m. when futures opened last night. We're like, all deposits at Silicon Valley Bank, even the uninsured deposits over 250K FDIC, are going to be made whole. And oh, by the way, we're shutting down Signature Bank. And so risks pumped, equities pumped, bonds pumped, Bitcoin pumped as well. There was, kind of blipped under 20K as USDC depegged briefly on Friday and over the weekend, as there was fears of kind of contagion and a bank run on USDC because they had $3 billion at Silicon Valley Bank. So as all those worries reversed, Bitcoin pumped along with kind of everything else. But I think the real reason why we've been looking at Silvergate, Signature, we've written about it a bunch in Bitcoin Magazine Pro, been on the radar since post FTX collapse, is like, if you kind of strip back, not the catalyst for the bull market, but I guess like the fiat on ramps of the bull market and how Bitcoin went from, say 5 to 10K in 2020 to 60,000, and obviously it's pulled back. You had the institutional interest, you had the drivers, but really behind the scenes there was two real banking partners for the crypto economy, and there's some more, but right, these were like the big guns, is Silvergate and Signature. And it was clear with following FTX debacle that there was, at the very, very least, there was money laundering, AML, KYC policy concerns regarding Send Network and Silvergate, which are Send Network and Signet. Basically, like, you could think of them as like off-chain stable coins for crypto players at these banks, right? And so these banks, their business models boomed because they were really like, the only people accepting these clients. And so that in a matter of weeks, Operation Choke Point 2.0 has gone from like kind of a hypothetical thing, rumor, conspiracy, to happening in full. And I don't think this is the end of it in terms of, Circle's reserves look okay now because, they were made whole, but stable coins have been quasi-ruled securities already. There's a precedent there, and it looks like they're going to continue to kind of look to choke off the Bitcoin crypto on-off ramps. So, a lot of people, like, everyone's like, oh, is the bottom in? Sure, the bottom could be in, right? And I think that's likely given kind of somewhat of a policy pivot here. But the real kind of worry, or maybe like last overhang for Bitcoin crypto market specifically, is the fact that they are purposefully, I would say, and they as in, the powers that be, the government, the incumbent banking interests, are essentially one by one shooting the rails for on and off for crypto players behind the shed. So that's kind of what I'm looking at most here, aside from the initial market impact of bullish because it's no longer a contagion event and there's bailouts. That's kind of the TLDR of the last week for me. But I would love to hear Joe's thoughts and yours as well, Sam.
Joe, got anything to add to that? Thanks, Dylan.
Yeah, so when it comes to, Dylan really hit it right on the head, right? In 1 week, every single bank that was, a major crypto on-ramp in terms of US dollar liquidity has been shuttered completely, right? So Silvergate, was one of the larger players, and they voluntarily liquidated operations last week. Who knows why they began doing that necessarily, but then, very shortly after, it really didn't matter because Silicon Valley Bank, obviously serviced a great deal of these crypto firms, but also tech firms in general, venture capital firms. And obviously the Treasury, the Fed, there's a joint effort there now to essentially back all uninsured depositors, make sure that as of right now, as of Monday morning, they get all their money back. But the bank's no longer there, right? The bank's done, and the same goes for Signature, right? The Fed and Treasury are leading a joint effort with the FDIC to make sure that all depositors are made whole, all insured rather depositors are made whole. But by the same token, the bank's no longer around. And so, in this really near term event, how is it impacting markets, on a day-to-day basis, right? VIX is, exploded higher, right? It hit 31, 32 today. So it's really above that threshold that, is considered scary, is considered, fear has really re-entered markets. But the more concerning thing is the fact that all these, good faith institutions that now want to do business in Bitcoin, and obviously crypto is embroiled with that. Now they have less of an ability to do so as a result of these banking relationships now totally souring. And it's really unfortunate because you have banks like Custodia Bank, who are trying to be a fully reserved institution and allow for institutions to on and off ramp to Bitcoin specifically. But they can't get a banking license, whereas you have entities like Silvergate, like SVB, like Signature, who are fractionally reserved institutions and are engaging in, highly levered, highly dangerous plays. And as we found out in the case of Silicon Valley Bank, no hedges whatsoever. And they can have a banking license galore. And so it's really interesting. It's really unfortunate. And I'd say the timing of it seems pretty deliberate.